Hey everyone, this is Charlie Shrem, and you're listening to Untold Stories. This is a show where we dive deep into the lives and personal histories of some of crypto's most influential leaders and find out how the crypto movement truly came to be. Let's dive in. I'm super excited that eToro is sponsoring Untold Stories because the CEO of eToro has been tweeting about Bitcoin since 2012. That's true OG. Now, eToro has become one of the largest crypto companies in the world, with over $1 trillion in trading volume per year. U.S. customers can trade the most popular crypto assets with extraordinarily low and transparent fees. And if you're not ready to trade yet, practice building your crypto portfolio with the eToro $100,000 virtual trading feature. Best of all, you can connect with 11 million other eToro traders around the world, myself included, to discuss trading, charts, and all things crypto. Create an account today at eToro.com. Links are in the show notes. And build your crypto portfolio the smart way. This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by Scott Offord, the creator of crypto mining. Scott's a broker of ASIC mining gear and helps people buy and sell their miners. He created a Bitcoin mining profitability calculator and an interactive ASIC hardware comparison chart that you can find at cryptomining.tools. It's the only free online tool for calculating profitability and days to ROI. That includes the impact of the Bitcoin block reward halving. The calculator lets you put in your estimated uptime to give you a more realistic profit projections. So check it out and find Scott on Telegram and Twitter at OFFORDSCOTT. That's OFFORDSCOTT. Links are in the show notes. Untold Stories is powered by Blockworks Group, the only event and podcast production company I trust. For access to the premier digital asset conferences and in-depth podcast content, visit them at blockworksgroup.io. That's blockworksgroup.io. I promise you will not be disappointed. Today my guest is Samson Mow. You all know him if you haven't been living under a rock for the past 3 years. He's the Chief Strategy Officer for Blockstream, was the Chief Operating Officer for BTCC, or Bitcoin China, BTC China, which is Samson when we spoke a few times, and currently the CEO of Pixelmatic, a gaming company. Welcome to the show, Samson.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
I have to say that, I think I read a Twitter thread once where you called someone a troll, and I was saying to myself, I was reading that, I was like, being called a troll by Samson, it's like a term of endearment. It's it's flattering. If you went and said that to someone, if you said that to me, I'd be flattered, because the term trolling is not a negative thing, because a lot of times it's out of love, but a lot of times it's being critical in a way to incite emotion from someone else and call other people out on bullshit and lying, because that's what people do. You're known of calling people out by saying things like the straw man argument, the red herring. A lot of these terms I actually learned from you. I didn't know what a red herring was, or the straw man argument, or things like that. I didn't know what that was. So, you've been professionally involved in the crypto space, and but not only the crypto space, you've been professionally involved in the gaming space, and from before you were involved in Bitcoin. And there's actually a wiki about you on a completely non-crypto website. And so a lot of people think that trolls are just people sitting in their parents' basement, which I was doing actually in the early days of Bitcoin. But you come from a very professional career, and you very quickly succeeded in being an executive from two of the top companies in the Bitcoin space. My first question really is, where did your such strong stance for Bitcoin, but really publicly calling people out on bullshit, where did that come from?
Probably from gaming, because when you're a hardcore gamer, you're playing online games or MMOs. People are very blunt, and they're not very they don't pull any punches. They're not that diplomatic, and they just say what they think. So I think it's useful. rather than beating around the bush and being very polite and, talking a lot of nonsense. It's better just to cut right through it and just call things what they are. And I think a lot of people don't like that, but as you said, it's needed because someone has to call people out, right? Unless or else no one will ever say anything. Everyone will say, "Oh, your project's wonderful, your project's great," and then we have more scams than we do today, or more scammier
It's
scams.
not just with Bitcoin, though. I mean, you look at the Hong Kong protests today, you look at what goes on around the world. When people are afraid to speak their mind and we suppress or censor people from being able to say whatever they want to say, how they want to say it, the whole point of freedom of speech is the ability to say something that someone else may not like, right? And that's like the essence of Bitcoin, which is it's a censorship resistant system.
That's right.
It is. It's extremely important. And I think it really came to light and prominence, and it opened up people's eyes when there was the whole SegWit user activated soft fork. That whole, what do we call that? Was that like a saga? Was that a time period in a certain time? How would you describe that whole event?
There's a lot of terms for it. I mean,
Yeah.
some people call it the Bitcoin Civil War. Some people call it the fork wars, the scaling debate. There are a few terms. I prefer Bitcoin Civil War because, it's not really a debate. I mean, you can only have a debate when there's two logical sides discussing,
But I wouldn't call it a civil war, because a civil war, I feel like, describes, I'm thinking of like the American Civil War. It describes like two majorities going head to head. But really what happened, what seemed like, at least from my end, was a well-funded, vocal super minority trying to be the loudest voice in the room.
Well, yeah, but the other side was like Coinbase and all these massive corporations. So, I think from a neutral bystander's perspective, it looked like two big sides. Maybe. What do you think? No?
I think that good intentions are not transferable, and so there were like, from my perspective, because I came late into that whole drama, and so from my perspective, I missed. There was the whole Hong Kong agreement and everything. I was away for all of that, so I didn't know about any of this, and so from my perspective, when I jumped in, and maybe it wasn't a good idea to do that, it seemed like the best way forward were to be a compromise. And so I'll admit that I am not technically savvy enough to understand at the time what the technical ramifications were and are of increasing the block size and even creating the precedent for increasing the block size. And I forget who coined it the best. I think it was Greg Maxwell who said, you're trying to create a political solution to a technical problem. And I think that was what the issue was. And that's, from the outset.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to frame it. I mean, it's under the guise of scaling, and you could say some people may not have understood it, and some may have been maliciously trying to push something through. But under the guise of scaling, you can do a lot of damage. You can set these precedents, like we can change things at will. We can have, corporations governing Bitcoin, and we can have people dictating what happens under development instead of the normal open source process where ideas are evaluated based on merit.
And then we see what happens when, with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV or BSV or BK, I mean, whatever you want to call it, you see what happens extremely negatively, how that turns out. It's centralized and controlled currencies, or, they're not even currencies. But I mean, when shit hits the fan with Bitcoin Cash, everyone calls up Roger and says, what's going on? And that in and of itself is a problem. There shouldn't be centralized people doing anything. And so I guess it's good in a way that forked off. It was a benefit, I feel like.
Well, I think the whole process, whatever you want to call that event in history, it was a needed part of Bitcoin's growing up, because we had to get that out of our systems. And
it was like puberty.
Kind of. It forced a lot of people to learn how Bitcoin works and what can and cannot be changed. And I think in the end, it's valuable. Even though it was painful and annoying, it was valuable in the end.
There was a lot of people behind the scenes from, with the whole Craig Wright, Roger Ver, Jihan side that were putting a lot of money in order to get their own agenda for power reasons,
Hmm.
not for the better of Bitcoin. And I think guys like me who were involved from very early, we never thought that that could happen. I guess I never really believed that there would be like this deep state within Bitcoin, if you will, right?
Hmm.
But as we saw, that actually existed. And I think that's what hurt the most is that people who were involved in Bitcoin early on were doing these things and actually trying to take over Bitcoin. And I guess it never occurred to me that Bitcoin would be something that was even take over a bull. Is that even a word?
You just made it one.
You see where I'm going with this? Like I didn't.
Yeah.
I guess I was like personally a little. I have to say, like, burn out. And a lot of people did. Some of my guests that won't aren't involved in the space anymore just got so burnt out by the fighting, but not because of whatever sides were to happen. But you have to understand, like, some of these guys and girls like got involved with Bitcoin, and it was so purist. It was so pure. It was
Hmm.
like this thing that was just so they were in love with, that to see it being fought over hurt so bad that they had to walk away from it, lest their whole view and their whole life like motto would go away.
Well, actually, that what you just said there, it does kind of resonate because a lot of people were very much in love with it, and they were in love with I guess, their perception of what Bitcoin was. And some people did think Bitcoin was for payments, and it was great for, buying coffee. And they felt suddenly like this thing doesn't do what it was supposed to do, and that's also a big part of why people jumped onto that big block bandwagon.
The Big Block Bandwagon. I love that. Did you just make that up, or has that been said before?
I've said it before, at least. I don't know if anyone else has.
So how did you get, take me back a few years. How did you get involved in the space? You were working at Ubisoft. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
And you started working with BTC China with Bobby Lee. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I knew Bobby from way back. We're social friends, and I started following Bitcoin from reading probably on TechCrunch in 2013 or so. And I was watching Bobby's company BTC China get some press, and I think I reached out to him sometime around 2014, and then I went to his house for a Christmas party, and he sold me a Bitcoin, and the apps weren't working that well, so I suggested I can come on as an advisor and help you guys a little bit. And from there, it just kind of snowballed, and I had to take on more and more responsibility at the company.
What was the 2013? Were you living in Canada or in China at the time?
No, I was in China at the time. I think I actually met Roger Ver for the first time in 2013 at some conference backstage.
What was the landscape like for Bitcoin in China back then? Was it something like big? Was it more of like a gamer thing?
I think it was still pretty big. I mean, it's definitely not as big as it is now. There's a ton of awareness now, but there was a lot of hype and a lot of interest in Bitcoin,
And
at
then
least at a grassroots level.
they were like they were like many times I remember that China was trying to ban Bitcoin or do all FUD. Um, and it really had an effect on the Bitcoin price back then, and it probably stressed you guys out because you were inside, you were in the country, behind the curtain, if you will, running this company, and here you have the massive government of China saying these negative things about Bitcoin. How did you feel about that?
Well, the thing is, China's never banned Bitcoin. They've banned banks from dealing with cryptocurrency companies, and they've banned it from being used as a legal tender, and they banned cryptocurrency exchanges basically, but they've never actually banned Bitcoin ownership, or trading
Sure, but it's more of like
directly.
it's always lost in translation when you go from the Communist Party of China to go from the to the Chinese press, and then you go the conversion over to like the American or the Western press, if you will. There's always a huge loss in translation there, and it always ends up being like this FUD, this fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah, but I think that's more on the Western side.
I agree. No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, they want press. They want clicks, so they say China bans Bitcoin. That's like the headline.
Whenever that would come out, I'd go on Twitter and follow this guy CN Ledger and see what he had to say about everything, because he was always the guy who would, provide clarity of what was going on back then. Now it's a lot better, but it's stressful having like your business, but also your whole life being at like you're waking up in the morning and you don't know what it's going to be like the next day. How are you running the bank accounts of the company?
Well, they're well, you have to come up with creative ways to deal with it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there are various solutions, and you go from bank to bank. But even when things are operating smoothly, you still get your bank account shut down because someone might say this account has some.
I'm still getting my account shut down right now.
Well, that's bad too. But I mean,
Every day.
it's running an exchange is
good.
difficult. There's always someone trying to mess with the fiat side of it.
Did you enjoy it?
Well, looking back, I'd say yes, fondly, but at the time, probably no. It's stressful. But the funny thing about the China bans Bitcoin thing is that it's also another growing pain because now everyone's desensitized to it, right?
Yeah, that's a good word, desensitized to it. It's true. I feel like the messages that come out of that now don't really affect the price of Bitcoin, or even like we kind of brush it off like, oh, here we go again.
Mm-hmm. Well, even when the China exchanges were shut down, I don't think the price really was impacted much.
You know what's interesting? I want to ask you a question about that, because that is one of those things that till today I'm fuzzy on. Okay, I'll tell you why. So we had like there were a few major Chinese exchanges. There was OK, and tell me what I'm missing. There was OK Coin, there was BTC China, there was Huobi, right? Those are the top three.
Yeah, those are the big three.
Okay, you had massive volume. I mean, like the volume between those three completely eclipsed the Western volume, like completely. It was just massive. And every time, and there was like 3 or 4 times over like a year where there was a Bloomberg article that China has banned Bitcoin. And we're generalizing, but it was always an article, huge FUD, price dumping, whatever would happen. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, and maybe I missed something, the exchanges in China just kind of like withered away or west, moved over to the West, but the Chinese volume just kind of like died, and that was it. And no one really talked about it. What happened?
Well, that was when we had to shut down. I think it was after I left BTC China in 2017 sometime. There was a gradual ramp down. Everyone had to shut down. But the warning sign for that was actually, I guess, let me think. It was summer 2016. We had like mini shutdowns at that time, and we had to revamp our whole KYC, AML procedures and implement new systems. But I mean, you could tell the signs were coming.
The message was clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was written. Someone told me this analogy this morning. The bus drums were in the forest, and I was like, "What?" I was in a VC meeting this morning, and the guy was like, "The bus drums are in the forest." I was like, "What the fuck did you just say?" But that's what it was. It was like you hear the drumming in the forest. You knew the signs were coming.
Yeah. So that was why I pushed to launch our international exchange, the USD dollar exchange, and I think pretty much after everyone was shut down in China, everyone expanded outwards and a lot went into Southeast Asia and into the US.
There's Huobi Global, there's OKX and which is the spinoff, and CoinAll, which is their sister company or whatever. What happened to BTCC? Are they still operating?
So they got bought by a Hong Kong company. The deal finished, I think, shortly after I left. And since they were bought, they've been just shutting down gradually. So the first was the mining pool, BTCC pool, which was shut down.
Yeah.
And then I guess the exchanges never officially shut down. They shut down the US dollar exchange. They shut down the forwards exchange. And of course, they shut down the CNY exchange. But I think they relaunched it, but then there's no traction now. But it's just kind of it's there, but I think it's a kind of a living dead zombie.
I still have a lot of Bobby's poker chips.
Oh yeah, you like those, right?
I love those. Well, he signed. I have a bunch of full sets, and he signed them, and I'm never selling those. Those are going to be worth a lot of money down the road.
Yeah,
just hopefully. Like the Casacious coins.
Yeah.
And now, yeah, whenever I talk to Bobby Lee, he's messaging me to come play poker with him in Vegas. And so I was trying to figure out what's going on with the company, if it was still open. I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Well, that's good to hear that there was a
it's still
purchase.
there. It's still there, but I'm not sure what's happening with it now.
It's good. Um, it's really that company and the involvement of you, Bobby, and everyone um, is going down in the history books, and it's really important because you guys were trailblazing, right? So, I mean, for my listeners, like, try to imagine what they were doing, running this huge Bitcoin exchange and allowing people to buy and sell Bitcoin in China at the same time. The signs were clear that Bitcoin exchanges were really no longer welcome inside China, and so that was a big thing. A lot of us felt like you guys were kind of playing with fire almost. I was happy to see that it worked out. And then kind of like around that, after did you leave? When you left, did you start working with Blockstream, or was there like a period for you where you were just kind of having fun traveling around back and forth?
I think I took a month off, and but
But you didn't plan for it to be a month. You're like, I'm going to take a few months off and I'm not going to work. And then probably a month later, you found something new.
no, actually, I decided to join Blockstream sometime in late 2016. But the timing worked out so that in China, a lot of people were what's the word I'm looking for? They were yelling at me online saying that I left because of the shutdown. But actually, the timing was just that. It was not that I planned to leave when the exchange was shut down. I It just worked out to be around the same
But
time.
I have a question. Why would they be yelling at you? I mean, I would leave because of the shutdown. I don't understand.
I guess they felt like I'm jumping ship because it's difficult or something.
What do people expect you to do? That
I
makes
don't
no
know.
sense.
Tough it
No, that
out.
makes yeah, tough what out? You're gonna Samson Mow versus the
Central
Communist Party
Bank.
of China? What is that? Although
Yeah,
you could probably troll them really well on Twitter.
yeah, but that's not that's not
That's
interesting.
not a good fight you want to pick.
Yeah.
So tell me about Blockstream. I remember actually talking to, and I'm not sure if he's still involved in the com. I remember talking to Austin Hill back in 2014
Hmm.
about launching this company called Blockstream. And then I went away for 2 years. And then when I came out, all of a sudden Blockstream is at like the forefront of, representing, or not representing, but um, leading the charge for Bitcoin purity, and for not allowing these other companies to try to take over and control, which was a very good thing. But what did I miss during those 2 years?
Let's see. It's 2014. I think Blockstream was pretty much founded just before the wars happened. So I think a lot of the early years of Blockstream were just people getting pulled into these arguments and fights.
What was
And
the premise of the company? Why did you guys launch?
well, Blockstream was founded to advance R&D on sidechain technology, and the Liquid network, which is a Bitcoin sidechain, is kind of like our premier focus and premier product right now.
The Liquid Network allows people to move Bitcoin instantly from various um, exchanges or companies that work, or wallets that are willing to work on the Liquid Network. Correct?
Yeah, well, not instantly. It's 2 minutes, around 2 minutes for final settlement, but there are 1 minute block times. So you can think of it as another state of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is like ice, then Liquid is, liquid water. So it moves faster. And then you have Lightning, which is even faster.
How does Liquid work?
So what you do is you peg in Bitcoin into the Liquid network. And what that means is you lock it up on the main chain so that you can unlock it in Liquid. And that way you're guaranteed there's always a one-to-one peg. So Liquid only is compatible with Bitcoin in that sense. So you can't actually have more Bitcoin in Liquid than you do, on the main chain.
And then how long does it take to go from Bitcoin to Liquid and back? Do you have to wait a block?
I think pegging in is longer. Pegging out, you can just do like 1 to 6 confirmations, but pretty quick.
How long does pegging in take?
102.
And what type of use cases do you see for the Liquid right now?
Well, there's a lot of interesting use cases. Like the first and foremost is arbitrage. You can move money quickly between the different exchanges. So Bitfinex is integrated, and a bunch of other exchanges, BitMEX as well. So you can move your coins from one to another relatively quick compared to the main chain. And you can also issue assets. Like you could issue tokens in the Liquid network at the um, same level as Bitcoin. So if you imagine Bitcoin, you have on the Bitcoin chain, you have Bitcoin, and you could have like, another coin at the same level. It would transact the same way. You could have multi-sig wallets. That's what Liquid is. So you can have a stable coin in Liquid that has the same security level as, say, Bitcoin, technically.
How do you feel about people launching tokens on Bitcoin?
Well, I think it's not launched on Bitcoin, it's launched on Liquid, but I think it's good because Liquid's gas is Bitcoin basically. So you're using Bitcoin to move stuff around Liquid. And I think that helps the Bitcoin ecosystem overall because there's another use case for Bitcoin.
If you remember, Vitalik actually tried launching Ethereum on Bitcoin, similar to what you're talking about. But the Bitcoin community was so against him, he was forced to actually launch his own chain called Ethereum. What's the change now? You think if Vitalik came along and said, "Hey, I want to launch this on Bitcoin," you think the community would be different? Would be more amenable toward launching, various layers on top of Bitcoin?
See, I've never really bought into that story. I'm pretty
Well,
sure.
there's a forum post.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a forum
but the
post.
thing is, you could do whatever you want. You don't need to listen to people on the forum. And
Well, as far as I understand, there needed to be some updates or some improvement protocols on
yeah,
Bitcoin in order to do it, and you guys got those through, but Vitalik wasn't able to get those through. So I'm trying to figure out why.
I need to reread that post, but I think what it was is he wanted some other opcodes. But I think his vision was more like spammy stuff on Bitcoin. Like,
But who's to say what's spam though? Like what? Who defines what spam is and what spam isn't?
yeah, that's a really
You
complicated.
remember when like it is, I've literally so Luke lives like very close to me here in Florida, and we've met up a few times, and like literally this always comes up in conversation
Yeah.
because I remember like he believes he thinks or he thought I don't want to speak for him, but things like Satoshi Dice were spam
Hmm.
on Bitcoin, but I was like the whole point of Bitcoin is that no one really gets to decide what's as long as I'm willing to pay for a transaction. If I just want to send, if I want to pay and waste money to send transactions between myself and load up the memory pool, why is that spam?
I guess it really comes down to like, do the majority of people think it's good or bad, right? Like, there is Veriblock, which is also spamming the Bitcoin blockchain, and they're paying for it. So you could argue it's not spam, but it has really nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's just like another chain that's using Bitcoin in its own benefit, I guess.
But that would be but it further grows and brings more users to the Bitcoin chain. Wait, I just want to make sure that our listeners don't confuse Veriblock with Veritasium because they're completely different things. They say I've known people who confuse the two.
Okay.
And I don't know if you saw the news today. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Reggie Middleton's Veritasium got subpoenaed by the SEC because it was a big ICO scam. But they're completely different things.
Okay. Fair. But yeah, I mean, like, if you think of Bitcoin as the purpose of Bitcoin is to transact Bitcoin, then this thing has nothing to do with Bitcoin. So I would just classify it as spam, even though it's paying fees, right? It's like you're using email to get email that's sent to you, but someone there's no direct analogy. Basically, I think I would classify certain things as spam, even if they're paying the fees, because that's not the point of the Bitcoin network.
What's the point of? I know this is like a stupid question, but I guess I'm not trying to like create a question that can't be answered because I know full well that these questions can't be answered.
Yeah.
I guess my point is that like I used to always think Bitcoin is or Bitcoin should be this. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like when I got involved and this is what I thought. I was like, I think Bitcoin is this or Bitcoin should be this. But then I'm like, over the years, I guess I've learned that who am I? I still call myself a kid, but who am I to like say Bitcoin is this or Bitcoin is that? Bitcoin is what I want it to be and I'll use it. But I guess as long as I'm not preventing someone else from doing what they want to do with it, then I'm not really doing harm. But I guess your point, and tell me if I'm wrong, is if I'm going out and doing something that I want to do and spamming the network, I'm harming it in a way and preventing other people from doing what they want to do. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'd say there's two ways to define spam. One is if they're paying, it's not spam, right? That's the most open argument for spam, I guess. That if you're paying, it's not spam. But I think if you're doing something with the Bitcoin blockchain that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, then I would classify that as spam.
There's a very controversial, there's a very controversial, and I take an extreme side. There's a very controversial argument or debate out there. And to someone like Luke, who actually says we need to make blocks smaller, but I believe, and me, I am okay with, and I want to pay $5 for a transaction, knowing that this transaction is super secure, more secure, 10 times more than secure the blockchain network is today. I'm willing to pay for that. And so if it costs more to send value over the internet on a network that literally can never be reversed by any supercomputer in the whole entire world, I am willing to pay for that. But as you know, the other camp says, no, we need to have a lot less secure, but be able to send transactions extremely cheaply. And we're somewhere in the middle right now. There's certain times of the day where it's really cheap to send Bitcoin, but some points in the day where it's more expensive to send Bitcoin. Now, the block size is what it is today. There are camps that want to decrease the block size, make it more decentralized, and make it more decentralized and a lot more secure because you have a lot more nodes validating blocks on the network. But it will cost more to send Bitcoin because blocks are smaller. It takes more time. People are increasing their fees. I'm like, okay with that. Not decreasing the block size because, again, I'm not technically savvy enough to like make informed like decisions on that. But I want a more secure network. I'm here. The reason I'm here and I got involved is because I want to see a monetary system that is so secure, that is so decentralized that no one can even fathom reversing, freezing, or taking control of this network.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay too to pay high fees because you just have to think of like what the alternative is. And a lot of people probably have not done a bank wire transfer. So I think a month ago, I did a wire transfer to someone. And, on our side, we paid their usual $20, $25 fee. And then when the guy received it, it's like, why am I short $25? Like, didn't you pay the fee? And I'd tell him, no, we paid our fee, but that's your fee from your bank. So any wire transfers, at least $40 to $50. If you're not
at a minimum.
Yeah, if you're not in Europe.
Oh yeah,
right?
At a minimum, you're paying $15 on each side.
Yeah.
So I mean, so we're okay paying $30 to have an instant domestic wire transfer. I have to send a wire transfer later today, but I'm okay paying that $30 because you're moving large amounts of money. But I guess the other side will say that that's not what Bitcoin is supposed to be. That how are we going to get people to believe that it's a secure network if not? But then you have companies like you that are building out these layers on top of Bitcoin.
So
building up
those small payments, they can be done. They can be done on Lightning, but there are people that, like you said, love Bitcoin and they love it in its original form, which was very cheap on-chain fees, and not many people were using it then.
But it wasn't secure.
Yeah, it's relative. It's always relative to the network size, right? So back then, maybe it was secure, but
there was no economic incentive to try to do a 51% of the network. But if you look at the numbers back in 2012 or 2013, it was by today's numbers relatively cheap. Any major company could afford to do it.
It's hard to say because the hardware was not there that time, right? Like there's always a bottleneck for getting more hash rate. So either you got to buy everyone's existing hash rate or make your own, and that's a slow process.
eToro is crypto trading made easy. It's one of the largest and smartest trading platforms in the world with extraordinarily low and transparent fees. Join myself and 11 million other traders and create an account at eToro.com. Links in the show notes, and build your crypto portfolio the smart way. As a mining equipment broker, Scott Offord wants to make sure his clients are well informed and making data-backed business decisions. Scott created the only free online tool for calculating profitability and days to ROI for miners. It's a better way to compare the efficiency of various models of ASIC miners and to see how the price of the miner and the efficiency impacts your mining profitability. So, check it out at cryptomining.tools and find Scott on Telegram and Twitter at OFFORDSCOTT. That's OFFORDSCOTT.
Back then, you'd have to buy all the hash rate to attack the network, or buy a good chunk of the hash rate to attack, or you'd have to create your own ASICs, and that takes a lot of time and money.
But in theory, the cost would be a number, where now it is a much higher number, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, but it's always relative to the time period. So back in 2012, yes, it would be cheap for today, but back then it would be, it'd be very prohibitive to do so, I think.
Good. That's the whole point. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So there's like always a lever system where you look for rich user experience, and that's as you know, there's a lot of complaints over Lightning's user experience at this point, and it's getting better every day. But there's like a lever system between rich user experience and security and privacy. So as one goes up, the other one generally goes down. And look at Facebook, look at Twitter. We give more data and our life becomes more convenient.
Yep.
Generally speaking, things that provide you more security and more privacy require a lot more effort. Tor, VPNs, even using hardware wallets. It's much easier to use a custodial solution, which is why Coinbase exists today. So I think at some point, and it's already happening, the equilibrium between a really good user experience and security and privacy are going to be all at the same level.
Yeah, I would extend that a bit and just say, you can have a pretty good user experience. You have good user experience when the service is centralized. Whenever it's actually self-hosted, self-managed, then there is a lot more work to be done to enjoy it, right? You can actually have hosted or custodial Lightning wallets,
but is that there are like Blue Wallet or whatever,
yeah.
But is that a problem? Is that not a problem, but is that like a flaw?
Well, it depends who you talk to. I mean, there are purists that say, well, it's so bad that Lightning has custodial wallets, but we also have custodial on-chain Bitcoin wallets too, right? So it's kind of inevitable. You will always have someone that can provide a custodial service, and the experience is always going to be probably better than non-custodial, right?
And frankly, you shouldn't be holding tens of millions of dollars or whatever it is on these custodial solutions and needing to be moving them around. And it shouldn't be really simple. You talk to someone, you have 10 grand, you keep it in a bank account and you just don't think about it. It's easy. But if you're someone who's like a billionaire or even has a few $1 million, you're paying a lot more attention to how the money's being managed. So there is a lot more work to be done when you're talking about larger amounts of money, moving larger amounts of money around the world too.
Yeah.
So there is it's okay to it's okay for it to require more work.
Yeah, it is okay to require more work. And I think you just have to understand there is a cost to managing money. A lot of people grew up today just not understanding that. There's no concept of having to take care of your own stuff, to manage your own money, to safeguard your own money because it's in the bank. But there are drawbacks to having your money in the bank, right? If you have negative interest rates, then you're losing money by putting it in the bank. But most people just don't have that concept of needing to maintain something. They're just spoiled.
Negative interest rates are so crazy that we're even talking about it, right? You just brought it up, but I mean, it's so beyond me that you have banks in Europe that literally are charging negative interest for a mortgage.
Yeah.
It's insane. How did we get to this point?
I think it's just a symptom of the fiat money system.
Manipulated and controlled systems that really don't work long term. So speaking of manipulated and controlled payment systems and currencies, what do you see the future of Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV or BSV? I don't even know what it is. I'm going to get trolled now because I call them centralized Fiat system, which they are actually.
Well, they are
Yeah, they are.
you're gonna get trolled. They're paying a lot of people right now to post stuff. Like you see hundreds of accounts popping up and trying
It's
to.
getting worse than the Ripple army.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable that it could come to that point. But I think they're getting desperate, and they're getting desperate because they know it's not working. Their whole thesis, and it's important that we remind people, is that bigger blocks are really important. But no, they're not, because no one's using them. No one's using them, and no one's buying it. So the price is just going down. And the sad thing is that these guys don't understand how bad they are. I mean, like they should definitely not be talking about anything publicly or representing any cryptocurrency publicly, because they're just so bad. And anyone that looks at what they do and what they say is just cringing.
A lot of people, this is a great quote someone said. It's like, if any project or currency or token has this like army, this like cult following that goes against you, that's like a problem in of itself. I posted a negative article, not a negative article, but I wrote an article yesterday that Chainlink, the devs dumped like 50% of all the token. I wrote an article on my Twitter, and dude, I'm getting killed for it right now. Like I'm literally, people are posting YouTube videos, but I'll be honest, I didn't even know much about Chainlink until yesterday.
Yeah. So,
but I just looked at the facts.
The same thing happened to me, I think 2 months ago. Someone tagged Charlie on a thread, and I don't know, I think Charlie responded and said something like, "Yeah, I didn't invest in this. I did not invest in this thing."
Oh yeah. That was that Chainlink too.
Yeah, that was Chainlink too. And then I just saw Charlie's thing, and I popped up, and I go, "Holy crap, what is this thing?" And then these guys all pounced on me and started making memes, and they went on for days. I just blocked them all, but it took a long time.
If anyone has an army, have you noticed like Bitcoin doesn't have an army? Why don't you see like that? Why do you always see like BSV and Bcash, people put in their Twitter profiles, and XRP, like in Tron and Chainlink, and you see it like in their Twitter profiles. They're all over, but you don't see like Bitcoin. Yeah. You don't see that at all, like ever.
Yeah, because Bitcoin's actually
we don't need it.
Bitcoin's valuable. You don't want to go and advertise that you have Bitcoin, right? That's just stupid. But for these things,
that's a good point. I never thought of it like that.
They're worthless. So yeah, you got to pump that and keep it alive, or else it's gonna die.
I think I never really thought of it, and probably a lot of people are listening and saying, like, think of it like, how many Twitter handles do you see where it's like, in the handle, the parentheses, it's like Bitcoin for life or whatever, like maybe for fun, and like cool people are doing it, but you don't see like the Bitcoin troll armies. And I'm still in like a lot of Facebook groups where people are still like debating bigger blocks, and I'm like, I almost want to say like, hey, like this argument is like so 2016.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like newer or falling into like the problem. This is the problem. The problem is, and it's not anyone's fault except for Rogers, but a lot of people go to bitcoin.com.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
That's, I think, the biggest problem today is bitcoin.com. If you were to say to me, Charlie, like, what's one of the biggest problems in Bitcoin today? I will say bitcoin.com. Because you want to hear a funny story? I know this is untold stories of you, but I want to tell you a funny story.
Sure.
I hope the people are not listening to the episode that I'm going to tell the story of. So I'm in a WhatsApp group, right? And I'm like debating. I got really into it because I was really against bitcoin.com, because a lot of people are like going on bitcoin.com and buying Bitcoin Cash and thinking that it's Bitcoin. And I know it's like, yeah, you say it, but like it actually happened to friends of mine.
It's happened to friends of mine too.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's complete bait and switch.
Yep.
And I'm really pissed off about it. So there's this guy who I like him a lot, and I still do, but he kind of fell under the spell and works at bitcoin.com. I don't want to say his name, but he's a really nice guy. I've known him for many years, and he kind of fell under the spell, and he just like talks like the talk and just like the lingo, but you could tell he doesn't really like believe it, but he's so far invested in it that he doesn't really have like a choice anymore. And he still goes to conferences and dinners, and he's just a nice guy, but he finds himself having to defend like Roger all the time because he's very publicly known.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can figure out this person's name, don't say it, because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But what happened was, and it was so awkward, dude, like I was in a WhatsApp group, and I was debating him and another person, and I guess I was in a bad mood, And me and this other person were like, dude, like, you know, this is bullshit. Like, Bitcoin.com is such a scam. You know, this is bullshit. And you know, you guys are bait and switching. You know, it's fraud. You know, you're stealing from people. And I'm in an Uber on the way to this dinner for a bunch of like, it's like a Bitcoin meetup dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm more like, it's getting so heated. My wife is like, why are you sweating? You know, I was like getting so angry because like, this is a private group. Like you can drop the facade. Like, it's us.
Mm-hmm.
We're your friends, you know, like drop the facade already, you know? And then we get to the dinner and he's there. And I didn't know that. And it was so awkward because you're like debating in a WhatsApp group. And then here you are like, and I was like, dude, like, let's just have a nice dinner.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just have bags, and there's nothing they can do about that except for hope and maintain the party line, right? And that's why you have these kind of idiosyncrasies where you know that guy can't believe this, but he's standing up for Roger. So
the good thing is that a lot of this stuff is behind us, and Bitcoin has been doing some really great things in the research and development front over the past few months, past year or so, even longer than that. Blockstream, you guys have done some amazing things. You talk the talk, but you also walk the walk, which is great. Launching Liquid, as we talked about earlier, and it's good to see like BitMEX and other exchanges utilizing it. You talk about side chains. One thing I have to say is I'm really struggling with my damn satellite. Like I'm not technically it's hard.
Yes, it is hard.
Because I have okay, so I got the dish, I set up the dish, I got the LN supply, I set that up. It's looking at one of your satellites, but the software part and all that, I'm running into you know what the problem with Linux is that there's always something that you don't have, and then you have to install, and then you have to install something else to install that.
Yeah,
and it's like a never-ending thing.
Yeah, I know. We're working on it. So we're probably going to launch a kit, like a plug-and-play kit.
Please,
that you just plug it into your hook your dish into it, and you're done. Because it is hard. But like you said, like anything where you're, self-custodial is hard, right? You gotta.
Because I'm gonna run the first one on the boat. I have a satellite dish that I can push a bunch of buttons, and the dish is self-turning, so it can locate any satellite I want it to and maintain contact with that. So if the boat's moving, the satellite dish will move with it to follow the satellite. So I don't use DirecTV, so I want to use the dish on the boat and run my own node, and then it could be really cool for me to like be running on my boat, on my own node, but also like be getting blocks from space.
Awesome. You gotta.
That's what I want to be the first one to do. That.
We'll help you. We'll help you get set up.
I'm struggling right now.
I'll send Grubbles out to help you. He's our satellite guy.
Please do. My good friend Leonard here. He runs a Bitcoin ATM company, and he thinks he can figure it out. But the problem is that the software to operate that satellite that I have on the boat, I think it's closed source, and it's a pretty well known company. It's called TrackVision, and all the satellite dishes on all boats are pretty much like run by this company. So I have to figure out a way for your software to talk to the dish itself,
right,
and make sure it constantly maintains on the satellite.
Okay, sounds good.
That's what I really want to do. I'm such a geek about this stuff. When the satellite launched, that idea, that was like brilliant. I thought, because I think for now at least it's symbolic, but it creates a question. So for those who don't know, Blockstream. I get ahead of myself a lot. Blockstream launched the ability. You guys partnered with a bunch of different dish companies.
No, we lease space.
Satellites.
We lease space.
Okay, so you lease space. And what's interesting about that, because someone said, well, they can just shut down the satellites. And I'm like, no, you can't, because DirecTV runs off those satellites. And if you take football away from America, then America's going to fucking revolt.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about satellites is you can't really stop the signal, right? There's nothing you can do. You can't. Well, maybe you could jam it, but you'd be like you said, you'd be jamming football or whatever else is on that satellite.
So tell the listeners why that's important and why you guys did that.
Right. So I guess fundamentally, Blockstream is building on top of Bitcoin. Everything is built on Bitcoin. Liquid is on Bitcoin. Lightning is on Bitcoin. We are very focused on building out the Bitcoin ecosystem and making Bitcoin more robust. And because we're building all this stuff on Bitcoin, we need to make sure that Bitcoin itself is resistant to
Completely censorship
Yeah,
resistant,
network splits or anything
no
like
matter
that.
what.
So with Blockstream Satellite, you can have a country cut off from the internet. And as long as one person in the country is still running the dish and running their node and they're connected to everyone else, then they'll keep that country in sync. Because you can't have these network splits where some transactions may be considered valid in this country and not the other country. So Blockstream Satellite fixes that.
Are there any other plans to launch the ability to have like pigeon carriers or non-internet based block or Bitcoin blockchain? What's the word when it spreads to get like whatever like pigeons or anything like
Well,
that?
I've
Paper.
seen a meme about about pigeon delivering Bitcoin, but I think it's not happening anytime soon. But we do have a partnership with Gotena so that we can.
Oh, that's a cool company.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so that company's actually used on boats a lot,
Mm.
and so if you have one, yeah, it's actually very cool that you mentioned that. So there's this whole community. If you Google like boats in the ocean, there's a website where you can pull up a Google Maps and see all boats in all the global oceans.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of fucking boats in the oceans. But these are only major boats like container ships. These are not boats that are like under 50 feet, which are so like whatever you see on that map, the amount of boats that are out there are like 10 times greater. And so most boats talk to each other and talk to central like beacons through VHF radio, but it's only like 10 miles. Gotena has the ability to create this mesh network. And so if I want to talk to a boat who's, let's just say, 50 kilometers away, if there are enough Gotenas in between, then I can talk to that boat.
Yep.
Why is this important? Because because there are so many boats in the water, eventually they want to have the ability to be able to that's what the word I was looking at, propagate blocks, but also just be able to, the old, like, if you want to get a message across and there's no internet, or you're trying to get a message to somewhere where there is no internet or something's wrong, then you can utilize this mesh network. So if you're talking about putting Bitcoin blocks, propagating them on with Gotena, that's pretty great, because you're virtually, by doing that, it's another internet that no one really talks about. Mm-hmm. There isn't a lot of bandwidth ability because these devices are small, but it is another internet.
Yeah. Well, I think you can't push a block through Gotena. They're too low bandwidth, but you can push transactions through, and that's our integration with them. So you can get you can push up a transaction through your offline satellite node through the Gotena network, and backwards.
That's awesome. Where do you see the future of Blockstream? Where do you see the future of Bitcoin a few years from now? Your answer is going to be is different than I always ask my guests towards the end of the show, because I'm curious on what they think. But I mean, where do you see us in 5 years from now?
Well, I think in 4 years, I think we'll see mass adoption of Lightning.
Why 4?
Because I predicted it last year, so I'm just following through. In 4 years, we'll see a lot of Lightning adoption, and for retail payments and such. I think we'll see major point of sales terminals integrating Lightning, and that means you can spend Bitcoin pretty much everywhere.
But you think that Bitcoin adoption in like local stores was hindered by the fact that it just takes too long for a block to come through? And Satoshi himself even said that unconfirmed transactions shouldn't be counted as settled.
Yeah, definitely. Like, Bitcoin is not a payment system. If you look at the design from a high level, it's nothing like what a payment system should be. It is a settlement network, and a lot of people argue
it wasn't built. Okay,
yeah, a lot of people argue against that and said no, but it really is, because.
But Satoshi's vision, Samson.
Yeah, I know. I'll never get into that camp. They'll never accept me. But it's not high speed. Like
it's such a cult.
You can't go into a store and buy something and make them wait, or make the customer wait, or anything like that. It just doesn't work. You have to,
unless you're like going in and buying like $100,000 car or something, then you're gonna wait freaking 10 minutes, have an espresso.
Yeah, that's fine, but you don't want to buy the espresso and wait 10 minutes, right?
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, but yeah, I think in like 5, probably 10 years, maybe 10 years, I think Bitcoin will be at the base of a new financial system for the world. So everything will be powered by Bitcoin.
Will it be like a stable coin type thing, or will Bitcoin volatility kind of like taper off?
Well, I think we have some time before volatility tapers off, but I think there will be a lot of ancillary financial systems built on top of Bitcoin. So one thing that I'm hopeful for is that we see security tokens take off, and if they're issued in liquid, then they're all compatible with Bitcoin. You can do single chain atomic swaps for like stock for Bitcoin, or you can already do that for stable coins in Bitcoin. We can have atomic swaps between liquid tether, and liquid Bitcoin.
Samson, I just want to interrupt you for a second. The reason liquid is so important and doing things on the Bitcoin chain is so important is for security reasons, right? But why don't people take that seriously? Like, why isn't the security of the network not taken seriously enough? Have we not seen a major have we not seen enough 51% attacks? Have we not seen enough network network takedowns of other coins and tokens before people say, hey, maybe we actually need to be doing things on a secure network? Like, why is that never in a conversation? I should never say never, but like rarely in conversation.
I think people generally just don't care. They just see that there's an opportunity to make money, and that's it, right? Like, technically, a lot of exchanges should not list a lot of coins, because that means they have to run the the client or node of that software.
And if something happens, who do you think they're going to blame?
Well, they'll blame the project, but
they're also blaming the exchanges. If you're keeping money of a token, you don't know better on Coinbase, and Coinbase lists one of these scam exchanges, you're going to go after Coinbase. You're not going to go after this other. I mean, you go after both, but you're going to go for the pockets.
Yeah.
You're going to say that Coinbase should have had the smarts not to list a project that was endangering their clients.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, doesn't Coinbase have a lawsuit being filed against them for
I have a lot of lawsuits filed. Every major Bitcoin company probably has lawsuits filed against them.
Yeah, but
we just don't know about them.
You're right. I mean, a lot of exchanges should not list these things because it can harm their users, and security should be a consideration. So for Bitcoin, the security is derived from the hash rate, proof of work, mining, and from liquid, it's derived from the federation. And we spend a lot of time on security testing and making sure liquid has adequate measures taken to prevent loss of funds or frozen accounts like Parity and Ethereum. But a lot of people just don't care. I think especially the Ethereum folks just really don't care about security at all.
What do you think of proof of stake? I mean, do you think it's like, I think it defies the laws of physics, but I'm not a physicist.
It's perpetual energy. There's a lot of problems with proof of stake, and you can kind of...
Yeah, wait, but perpetual energy doesn't make sense, because how do you energy can't be created or I'm saying that energy can only be transferred. It can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
So how is this created, this energy that you're talking about?
Well, it depends. Like if it's Ethereum and they're doing proof of work right now, and they're going to transition to proof of stake, then
okay, good point.
You can say, okay, now it's not consuming all the energy. But the analogy I take is, if security is energy, which it is for Bitcoin, and you're boiling a pot of water, right? To keep water at a boil, you have to keep inputting energy in the form of heat, right? And when you say you're going to transition to proof of stake, it's like you built this contraption to put on top of the pot of water that's going to recycle the steam into more energy to heat the water. And that's your security. Well, it'll just degrade over time, because that's not...
Eventually.
It doesn't work that way. So that's
a very good analogy. I'm going to use that in speeches.
Yeah. If you keep boiling the water, then you have security. That's proof of work. But anytime you try to remove it, it'll just degrade over time. And it's even funnier for proof of stake coins that try to boot up from zero, right? That's just like saying we magically are secure, because what you're doing is dividing up a number of coins between, let's say, for simplicity reasons, 10 people. And these 10 people are going to, secure the network by validating transactions. But first of all, there's a snowball effect. So if there is a payment schedule for generating new coins, and whoever holds more coins will get more and more over time, and it'll centralize to control will be centralized to those people that have more, right? But still, like, you can't just take 10 people and say we made something, it's secure, and there's no energy input.
I think that's like that was my point earlier. You grew on that, and your analogy is actually very good, and I'm going to use it. But I guess is what I never thought of, the transfer from proof of work into proof of stake, a transfer of energy that was already created. I never did that before, so that's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Thank you for helping me debate myself later.
No worries.
So I guess the last question I have for you is, not question, but I'm going to make a statement and tell me if you disagree with me or not.
Sure.
Environmentalism. I wrote an article a few months ago saying that actually Bitcoin is proof of work is the best thing that could have ever happened for the environmental movement. And the fact that these green parties aren't like embracing Bitcoin, in fact, like fighting Bitcoin, is completely beyond me, because up until proof of work existed, there was no real incentive, like financial incentive, to create or to invest in alternative and more efficient and cheaper and safer energy. And in fact, you read these stories that in China and other places, mining groups are paying for building of dams and hydroelectric plants and things like that, solar farms, in order to mine for Bitcoin. And in fact, like, you're not seeing energy being diverted away from hospitals to mine for Bitcoin. Why aren't they, or do you disagree or agree with me? And why aren't these, these like environmental groups embracing proof of work?
I think so I agree with you, first off. And I think it has to do with people.
The show's over.
People are very bad at math. They can easily calculate. Okay, like, this there was some guy critiquing Blockstream mining, saying, "Oh my God, it's 300 million watts."
I saw that the other day.
Yeah.
That's why I'm breaking this up.
Yeah, I weep for humanity, but that's because you can calculate it, that this is consuming this much power. But how much power is the Fiat printing presses of the world consuming to maintain that, to maintain ATM networks, to truck physical cash around from location to location, with gas powered vehicles? Or what about gold mining? What about storage of gold? What about melting gold, reforging gold, moving gold around the world? That this all consumes energy, but it's not readily calculatable. So people just go, "Oh, well, Bitcoin consumes a lot, and I did the simple multiplication, and bad Bitcoin."
That's a very good point. And I want to end with that. How can people follow you on Twitter? You actually have your own show with Rick and with Charlie, Magical Crypto Friends.
Yeah.
How can people follow that and follow what you're doing?
So my Twitter handle is Excellion, EXCELLION, and our show is Magical Crypto, and we're on Twitter as well at Magical Crypto.
A lot of people, their original crypto nicknames or Bitcoin nicknames are their like original gaming nicknames.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that was yours.
Yes.
I'm assuming that was Rick's Fluffy Pony. I don't know. I'm assuming, but my original handle on the Bitcoin Talk forums, and eventually my investors said you have to stop using it. Like, use your real name, but it was Yankee. And the reason it was Yankee was because I was, I played a lot of Unreal Tournament 2004.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was my game. Like, everyone has their game. I was like super good at it, and I played it religiously every day. I was in a clan, and my clan was really good, and we played a lot of tournaments, and I was the only American in the clan. So they bestowed that nickname to me as Yankee. And so like we'd be on TeamSpeak, and we had and that would, I'd be the only American there. It was like guys like Dr. Phil was one of their names, and I think I forget, our clan's name was the Cabal of Killer Clowns. And we were a UT 2004 clan, and we played a lot, and that was my name, Yankee. So when I got involved in Bitcoin, I just named my forum post was Yankee.
Yeah. So Excellion is actually my Lineage 2 handle. That's an MMORPG, but I played that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I played it pretty hardcore.
Excellent. Samson, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to release this.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Looking forward to it.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by Scott Offord, the creator of Crypto Mining. Scott's a broker of ASIC mining gear and helps people buy and sell their miners. He created a Bitcoin mining profitability calculator and an interactive ASIC hardware comparison chart that you can find at cryptomining.tools. It's the only free online tool for calculating profitability and days to ROI. That includes the impact of the Bitcoin block reward halving. The calculator lets you put in your estimated uptime to give you a more realistic profit projections. So check it out and find Scott on Telegram and Twitter at OFFORDSCOTT. New episodes go live every Tuesday at 7 a.m. EST. Links to our Apple and Spotify channels are in the show notes. You can also follow me on Twitter, Charlie Shrem, to continue the conversation. See you next week.